When I made a pact with Lucifer, everything in my life began to change immediately. A day later, I started noticing shifts, and I had no clue what was in store for me. But I just wanted to make a video to give you a couple of the notes, or the noteworthy pros and cons of making this pact and seeing what actually happened in such a short span of time. So without further ado, welcome to this video, and if you make it to the end, I really appreciate you. I'm going to try and keep it as short as possible. Please be sure to drop a comment in the comment section for the algorithm, and like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. This is just a no bullshit story time, so forgive the shaky camera. I'm going to try and stabilize it through an app whenever I get done recording this and have time today. Anyway, Lucifer is an entity that I believe has been speaking to me, been calling to me since I was a little boy. I can remember encounters that I would have that are very close to the encounters that I have now that are Lucifer. And I'm not here to break down who Lucifer is or what Lucifer is. That's going to be a topic for another video. Just know that Lucifer is not what Lucifer is known as in the Christian religion whatsoever. This is not that character that I'm talking about. That is all mythology. It's hardly even mythology. That is fairy tale. It doesn't exist. It's not even a good translation of the usage of that title, that name. Absolutely not. So, how it started for me, and I'm not going to go into my backstory. I might share a couple little encounters that I had here in a little bit. But Lucifer first started reaching out to me, honestly, back, this was years ago, when the Netflix series Lucifer came on. And I didn't watch it at first. I was actually in Christianity at the time. I was actually still a participant in the church, although my beliefs were more on the fence, because at that time I wasn't exactly believing in is that even a word? Believing in heaven and hell, because I actually used a Strong's Concordance, and I'd watched other YouTube channels that actually dispelled a lot of the horribly miscalculated interpretations of the Bible. If you go back and watch my first video, I talk more about this, about where you see hell in the Bible. There's usually that's a blanket word for at least 4 to 5 other words, and none of them represent eternal torment. Alright? So, this isn't what that video is about, but I just have to paint the picture here. So, this is where I'm at in my head. I no longer believe in hell. I'm still participating in the church. I'm still a leader in the church that I'm in. And I'm teaching people how to use magic at my church, how to heal the sick, how to use their inner vision, how to tell the future, essentially, how to tap into their psychic connection, and all of the stuff that I do now. I was teaching people how to do it using Christian language and that format, but it's the same thing. And so, and we're seeing miracles happen. we're seeing miracles happen right and left. We're having dreams. We're foretelling the future, and we're foretelling the future. You know, that's speak in the future, and so you manifest it into happening, versus predicting the future, which they're kind of like that. If you, once you get to a place of power, it's like you can think something and it happens, but and you think it's a coincidence or just a prediction. So all of this is going on. Meanwhile, see, my job was to teach the magic or the miracles, you know, the signs and wonders and all of that, which was legitimate, right? The other guy, Matthew, that I was working alongside on our Monday night classes, his role was he was more teaching about evangelizing and speaking to people and giving them the gospel, the good news, and all of that. If I knew back then what I know now, though, about the gospel. I'll say it now because I'm going to forget. I have a goldfish memory. But the gospel, the good news, was never, everyone's going to hell, but good news. If you love God and claim Jesus Christ as your Savior, you might have the chance of not going to hell. That's not good news. It never was to me, even as a child. I'm like, that's the good news? Where's the cool stuff at? Well, here's the cool stuff. The good news is you are God, right? The good news is that you are a creator and you can create the reality in which you live in, right? That's what the Son of God, which we're all sons and daughters of God, because we are God, right? That's just language. The good news is we are God, we are creators, we are powerful, and we decide our reality, we can decide our fate within the laws of nature while we are in this dense third dimension, right? It has to correspond with the third dimension. I can't snap my finger and cause a great white shark to just suddenly appear before me. That would be outside the laws of nature. However, I can manifest a great white shark by envisioning seeing a great white shark in person. And guess what? In a couple months, I guarantee I'm going to be on a boat in the Atlantic Ocean on a great white shark tour or something, and I'm going to see a great white shark in person. That's how it works. That's how we as creators can do this. Beside the point, Lucifer. Alright, so Lucifer was speaking to me. That name. The TV show on Netflix wasn't particularly important. It was an okay show. It started feeling very repetitive, like every episode was the same. Nah, never mind. But the name Lucifer popped into my consciousness after that. I'd never given it much thought until then. And even the show itself makes some pretty cool points about the whole dynamic of God, the devil, and all of that. It paints a more fair picture if we're talking about mythology. Like, you have God, who's kind of just this asshole at the top, and then you have everybody else. And then everybody's blaming the devil for everything, all their problems, when it's really, in reality, in all actuality, themselves just being shitty people. Alright? So that's some interesting concepts. It really has nothing to do with Lucifer, however. Lucifer began speaking to me over the next couple of years, and looking back, I see his guiding hand directing me, illuminating my path to where I need to go. Every YouTube video, every book that I purchased, every organization that I came into contact with, I think Lucifer played at least a small role in that inspiration, that guiding force. And even as I was going through a death cycle, I was going through like an abyss or an ego death. I've been through many of those, but my most recent one was losing an entire business and having a rug pulled out from under me, and moving out to the country and realizing that all these worldly possessions and all the things that I thought I desired, all the things that I thought made me myself, were pointless. They weren't authentic. They were attachments. They were part of a false identity, a false ego. And so I can look back and see where Lucifer was guiding me through that. It wasn't that he caused the things to happen. It was a natural cause and effect. But he was like, now that this has happened, look at this. Do you see this for what it really is? This is the reality of it. This is the reality of it. You're not going to find joy in riches. You're not going to find joy in sex. You're not going to find joy in traveling the world to take Instagram photos so that everyone knows that, you know, you live in Costa Rica in your big house. All of this stuff is ridiculous, and it's not you. Who are you really? And I had to really pull off layers after layers after layers. I went on my own vision quest, freezing in the mountains, being rained on all weekend long, and feeling like I was being stalked by other entities and things. And yes, I know this all sounds crazy, but this is what ego death is like. And I had to face a lot of harsh truths about myself. I had to accept that I'm not shit, and that's okay. Right? When we can say that to ourselves, I'm not shit, and that's okay, something magical happens. You accept yourself for where you're at, because this doesn't mean that you're always going to be not shit. And if we compare ourselves to somebody else, that could always be a truth. When I spoke these words to myself, it enabled me to actually build a new ego, a new self, a new identity, based off of who I was in alignment with my true potential, my true purpose, and actually have power behind it. None of this superficial stuff. That's usually, the superficial is short-lived and it's fleeting. And it always leaves you empty inside. So I started reading books like The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. What really led me to where I'm at, where Lucifer led me, was nature. That's where I met Lucifer for the first time in person, was nature. So I started buying the Tom Brown Jr. survival guides and things like that. And they're not survival guides, these are stories. Stories that contain shamanism, stories that contain awareness, and just, they're so beautiful. And I got into these, and I started implementing that in my life. And I've been doing that since I was a teenager. I was under Tom Brown's students of Tom Brown. They were my tutors, my mentors. So I have a history of survival and core shamanism that goes all the way back to my teenage years. But when I first started having my attention drawn to Lucifer, that's when things shifted. That's when things got interesting. Because I was still, even though I'd been out of this whole Christian faith for years, quite a few years, there's a remnant of that conditioning where the idea of working with Lucifer and making a pact with Lucifer still stirred something in my solar plexus. It gave me an anxiety. Something didn't feel right about it, but it felt powerful. I felt guilty. Like, here's someone who I had associated with the devil my entire life. But now I'm considering calling his name to come and work with me, to guide me. I didn't know what to expect. So, what happened over the next couple of weeks? So I remember reading as much as I could, and even watching other people's accounts on YouTube and you know, their own testimonies and stories, trying to figure out who Lucifer really was and what it was like to work with such a force. And so I've always been someone who's, in Dungeons and Dragons terms, it's called chaotic neutral. I'm okay with being the villain if I need to be. I'm okay with being the good guy if I need to be. So long as it serves those that I love and myself. I've never been one to just say, oh, I need to be good no matter what. Even when I was in the church, I was always the guy that, you know, I don't care what's right or wrong, I care what's effective, you know, and that's, to me, that's what Lucifer's been all about. So that might be why I align with that force more so. And there was a piece in a book that I was reading. I can't remember the name of the book. There was something sorcery, and it had E.A. Coetting, Asanath Mason. It had a couple other authors in it, and each one had contributed a chapter to this book. And there was a piece in there, I believe, from Asanath Mason's Rites of Lucifer. And I read this, and things just came into focus. It was scary. It was, you know, it was intimidating. The way she worded it was something like, it's going to cost you everything to gain everything. And she's talking about all these sacrifices, but the sacrifices were things that were parts of yourself, things that are within, things that are holding you back from the things that you actually desire to achieve in this world. And I thought about it and thought about it and thought about it. Finally, before I decided to make a pact or anything like that, I called upon Lucifer. Right here in my truck. Right here in my truck. And Lucifer showed up. And Lucifer began teaching me things, showing me things about myself. I had asked just to know things. I wanted to know Lucifer more. And so I began to go into a trance. I remember going into this deep trance while driving. I don't recommend that, by the way. I've perfected this. I can I can bilocate, and I can watch what I'm doing while I'm in a trance-like state. I can drive while I'm in a trance. Very advanced stuff. Don't try it yourself whatsoever. But Lucifer began to show me things. In this vision, I went into an open vision. And at first I'm seeing all these different events in history around the world. I'm seeing the crucifixion of Christ. I'm seeing the Roman Empire. I'm seeing, the Taoist. I'm seeing all these things transpire all the way back to Babylon. And I see the Tower of Babel. And I see, even before then, even before humans were on Earth. And why am I seeing these things? I asked. He said, look closer. And as I see these events, the scenes are changing even more rapidly now. I see that Lucifer is there, present, in every one of these events. Watching from the shadows. And just as I realized that Lucifer was always there, taking on many different forms, but he was never playing the role of the evil one per se, nor was he the hero. He was the balancer. As soon as I realized this, I was transported to a tunnel, it was more of like a hallway, like an Italian hallway, or like an old stone hallway. It was just archways and windows with torches along the walls, and I'm flying down through this hallway at a rapid speed, so fast the torches were blurring, the windows were blurring, and eventually I began to see a little dot at the end. Not a light at the end of the tunnel, but a darkness, a spot. And as I grew closer to it, it grew closer to me, and I knew Lucifer was waiting for me at the end. I could see the outline of Lucifer. I could see his clothing. I even saw a tail, and I saw horns, like a classic look of what you would expect Lucifer to be. As I got closer and closer and closer, it started to become more and more vivid. And then once I stopped right there at the doorway where he stood, something startled me. I looked closer and I saw that Lucifer's face was my face. It was almost like a way of pranking me. But he was teaching me, I am you, you are me, and this is the way it's been your entire life. And I believe that to be because Lucifer is a part of everybody. Everybody is a part of Lucifer. And that becomes more so as you work with Lucifer. As you learn from Lucifer. I've noticed my voice has began changing, almost more like Lucifer's voice, how he presents himself to me when he speaks to me. I've noticed my face has started changing. The real world, actual physical things happen when you do do these things, guys. This was before I even made the pact. So I decided to make the pact. Okay, this was my first. No. Actually, my second pact I'd ever made. The first one was with the demons of Par. And there were some things that happened with it, but nothing like the pact with Lucifer. So I went into the woods, and I have like this little hut that I've made out of sticks, so I call it the wiki up. When I sat in my wiki up, I had a blanket laid on the ground, I had candles going and incense, and I had written the pact. And I had a line for me and a line for Lucifer, and something to the tune of, I give you my self-doubt, my false identity, my fear of success, things like that, in exchange for, it was like success and being able to work for myself, no job, to be able to do what I love, to have all the powers of Lucifer, and protection for myself and for my family from any and all directions. Funny enough, this was accepted. Not all pacts are accepted the first time. Usually you're going to get rejected, but this one was accepted. I folded it up, I signed, he signed, and the next day I started just noticing, like I would think about a topic, a subject would come up, something about the universe or cosmic laws, things like that, and I would just know far too much about it. I would understand. It was not just not knowing all these little calculations and bits and bobs. It was literally understanding everything I could possibly understand about it, and having not researched it. And then I would research it, and it would all turn out to be true. And it started to freak me out. Most people think, oh yeah, powers are awesome, I want this. You're gonna freak out when you see this stuff actually happening. When you realize that if you have all the power of Lucifer, what that entails. You start understanding things about people that they don't even know about themselves. And it can be a scary thing. You start to see how the politicians operate, how the world operates, and you start to see everything at play, and you start to realize that, oh my God, this world is not as we thought it was. And I thought I was a conspiracy theorist before. I'm telling you now, this wasn't conspiracy theory. This was, oh, that's how it all operates, and that's why they do what they do. There was no, the government's all run by a Satanist and the devil, and no. It's much deeper than that. And I'm not going to get into that here. That might be a private Patreon video. I started seeing ways that I could make little moves that I could make for myself. Like my phone at the time my iPhone was already 6 years old and was becoming so obsolete that it wouldn't stay on half the time. I couldn't even record a TikTok video or anything like that because it would run out of memory and it would die halfway through the video, and I would get so frustrated. It would suck my creativity from me. But I couldn't afford a new phone at the time. Every dollar I made went to bills and went to groceries, and I've always been very frugal of it. I've never been a very frivolous spender. never been one to always need the latest gadget available, because I don't like always being in debt and making payments and trading in my phone to always have the newest phone, that sort of thing. I like to ride it till the wheels fall off. But I realized that I don't have a choice. My phone is breaking. It's falling apart and literally falling apart. The screen was pushing itself up and out because the battery was swelling up. And I'm like, this thing's gonna explode at some point. And so Lucifer showed me a way that, like, I had this download. Oh, I'm gonna get a Halloween bonus at the end of the year randomly. The boss never does that, but he said, yeah, we're gonna do a Halloween bonus. And then I was gonna get another bonus at Christmas time. So he showed me how, if I need a phone now, apply for, it was like an Apple card. And so I got an Apple card, and it had exactly, it was like a $1,000 limit on it. So I did that, ordered the phone. The phone got to me the next day, and was able to pay the debt back off in no time. There was not even, any what do you call it? Interest. Basically got a free phone. Like, wow. He taught me other things, how to take people's energy. He taught me that the left hand takes, the right hand gives, and how I could use that to empower my life. He taught me how I could use vampirism and harvest other people's, not just other people's energy, but if they owned a business. In my line of work, I'm in people's offices, at their homes and things like that. I rub elbows with entrepreneurs and highly successful people. He taught me how I could touch their work desk and impart the entrepreneurship to my own being, or to my own core. This sounds absolutely crazy, I know, but I'm a living testament today that all of this stuff worked. In a couple weeks, as soon as I got a new phone, I was able to make high quality social media posts and things like that, and the ideas would come to me, and I just started recording rituals that I was doing and posting those, and then people naturally started asking me if I could do rituals for them, and so I started getting paid to do rituals for other people, and they started getting results back. And from there, it started growing as a full-blown business. I started getting so busy, I had to raise my prices to weed people out, because people were coming for every little reason to commission me to do a ritual for them that would take me 3 hours, but they would only be paying me like $60 or $70 to get it done. And like, this is literally cutting into my spare time that I should be resting right now. So I increased my prices, and then I ended up having to increase my prices again because of the same problem. And now I don't even do that many rituals, because I've moved on to teaching people how to tap into their own power, their own magic, myself, or their self. And I've got a full mentorship program now. I've got a full-on Patreon now. I've got this YouTube channel. I've grown on Threads. I've grown on Instagram. My TikTok channel's up to, it's over 16,000 followers at this point. And so I don't want to grow too damn big, because it could be asking for trouble, and maybe that's another fear that I need to overcome. But because all of this transpired, because I met Lucifer halfway and dedicated myself, worked my ass off. I mean, worked my ass off, lost sleep, no breaks, no days off. I think I've taken 1 day off. And even then, there's been a little bit of client work that I've had to do. I've got 2 weeks as of this recording, 2 weeks left at my job, and then I am resigning to be a full-time occultist, a full-time mage or magician, whatever you want to call it, a full-time teacher of magic. And that was possible because of the path that I took and all the things that led up to that path, and the knowledge that I've gained, and the actions that I've taken, and the ways that I've shifted my thoughts about myself, my own beliefs, and the ways that I've removed a lot of these blockages that have been holding me back from believing that I can achieve the things that I've achieved in this short amount of time. So I'm also going to give this little pitch at the end, since we have this opportunity. If you are looking to learn this sort of thing, and I'm not saying, I mean, you can literally, I'll give you all the resources to learn about Lucifer for free, making a pact with Lucifer. You don't need me for that. I would look at Asanath Mason, her books. I would go to Universal Mastery, that YouTube channel. You can learn a lot more than I get. He's so knowledgeable about all of this stuff. But if you want guidance on how I did things myself, how I am using magic to literally create the reality that I live in, that is literally freeing me up from working a slave job. All jobs are pretty much slave jobs in this system that we operate in, by the way. Job stands for just over broke. You can barely afford a house, you can barely afford to eat, and you get paid just enough to keep you crawling back for more. And if you are making pretty good money, you're in debt up to your eyeballs, and you still, at best, get maybe, 2 weeks worth of vacation a year. You're not free. You're not free. I don't care if you're making a killing. Anyway, that's beside the point. If you want to know how I've done things, and you want to learn these things from me, go to my website, www.damios.com, and fill out a mentorship application. And if you don't have the money right now for mentorship, if you don't have the investment, that's okay. There's also payment options. There is also my Patreon. My initiate tier is $20 a month. Literally the cost of 2 cheeseburgers at a McDonald's trip these days. You know, it's, my knowledge has to be worth 2 McDonald's trips. Just saying. Go sign up for my Patreon, where I post a lot of the material that I do teach my students in mentorship. You just don't have that one-on-one personalized mentoring that my personal students get. And they also get, my personal students, they do get stuff that I don't show anybody else. I do go a lot deeper in the teachings about working with demons and some of the darker magic. But if you want to learn a lot of my fundamentals, my basics, Patreon is where to go. I post pretty regularly there. at least a couple times a week. Value-packed information. You're not watching a day in the life. You're not going to be watching what I eat every day. No, you're learning how to do the shit in a very practical, hands-on, applicable way. We're not talking about a bunch of theory. This is practice, okay? Anyway, we're past 40 minutes. Thank you so much if you've survived up to this point. You can join my Patreon through my website, www.damios.com. Click Patreon or /Patreon. Or you can apply for mentorship. Or if you do want ritual for hire, I still do ritual for hire on occasion. So just click spell work. Anyway, I love you very much, and we'll talk soon.